You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, all on Georgia Radio Network. Alright, welcome to episode 18 of the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast as Matt opens a beer. I'm joined here by Jessica Szilagyi and Matt Lowe. Y'all doing good tonight?
Doing good.
Alright, outstanding. Do what, Jessica?
I said super.
Oh, you said super. Okay, I thought you said stay right there. I didn't know if you were talking to me or someone else. So,
Stella, Shady. Stay there. I need privacy.
so this, a lot of times we have to do a lot of hard prep, a lot of deep dives to really find stories for the show. But this week we absolutely did not. We have several great things going on. We have, and this entire show is going to be dedicated to losers. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to start off with a very important disclaimer, because somebody's likely to get sued this week. Please remember that these are the opinions of All on Georgia, and they do not... I'm sorry. Let me restart that after this phone stops ringing. These are the opinions of the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast, and it's people and not necessarily the opinions of All on Georgia or any All on Georgia advertisers. All right, so let's get started. We're going to start with Renee Unterman, senator from Gwinnett. She took to Twitter. I don't know her medicated state at the time that she took to Twitter, but she took to Twitter this past Wednesday with a really insane rant aimed at State Representative David Clark and gubernatorial candidate Brian Kemp. As you well know, Casey Cagle is a longtime friend and follower of Renee Unterman, and they work together on a lot of things. So it's not really all that surprising that she would be backing Cagle here. But this Twitter storm was absolutely hilarious. It's actually been covered by Jessica, so I'll go ahead and just pass the baton off from here.
So in this series of tweets, Renee Unterman, like we said, calls out David Clark as someone who supports predators preying on young children being bought and sold for sex. And she posted a screenshot of the vote count from Senate Bill 8 in 2015, 3 years ago. And to her credit, it's a pretty monumental bill in Georgia history, because it violates our state constitution, because it creates a new tax and starts from the Senate and not the House, which is required under our Constitution. So she, in all of her wonderfulness, sarcastically congratulates David Clark on leading Brian Kemp's veterans group, and while pointing out he's a veteran, she slams him for supporting sexual predators. And so on All on Georgia, I published an article basically fact-checking everything, because the bill had nothing to do with sexual predators. Yes, it had to do with human trafficking, but human trafficking was a non-included... It was like an after effect of what they were trying to do, because it's the strip club bill that we talk about so often on here, where they charge a $5,000 fee or 1% of the gross revenue. So for her to make this about supporting sexual predators, when Renee is the one who voted against Marsy's law, which gives victims the same rights that suspects and defendants have in court, and voted against the Hidden Predator Act and worked with Casey Cagle to keep that from coming through this session. It's rather rich.
And it truly is. And I think that one of the things that I found the most entertaining, and by the way, if you have not seen this article yet, then you absolutely have got to go on over to allongeorgia.com and check it out, because it is just a who's who of the legislature on this one Twitter back and forth. And one of the great things, which is something that former State House Rep John Pizzold pointed out, is that in the image that she posted, she has certain no votes circled. And he asked the question: "Is this for payback, or what's the deal here?" Which the question was never answered on Twitter, but I do think it's a good one, and I do think it's quite odd that Renee Unterman has documents from 3 years ago of who voted no on one of our bills that has all the no's circled, and she still has the document. It just makes you wonder, how vindictive is this woman?
Pretty vindictive, her entire legislative career, she held the rape kit bill hostage, I think in 2016, if I recall correctly, and, she's single-handedly held up medical cannabis expansion years in a row. I mean, the woman, and she will admit publicly and privately that it's because they voted against her bill or her bill is stalled in the House. It's not about passing good policy regardless of who gets the credit, and it's not about, negotiating. It's her things pass, and those who don't support it are on her chopping block for the years to come. And what's even more interesting about this is that she and David Clark are in the same delegation. They're all in the Gwinnett delegation. And BJ Pack, who was a state representative, who's now a U.S. District Attorney in Atlanta, he actually killed the House version of it. So, and Buzz Brockway, I can't remember if he voted against it or not, but I want to say he didn't. But no, he didn't vote against it. But, there were a lot of people in the delegation who didn't support the bill. And, it's pretty bad if you're going to spend the next several years squashing people you literally have to work with for your community because you're ticked about something that happened 3 years ago.
Yeah, I think that she is going to be just absolutely, when I first saw that on Twitter, I thought, okay, that makes the show easy because that covers the loser of the week. I thought that's just an easy go. Loser of the week covered. We won't even have to put up a poll. We'll just, by executive order, unanimous consent, name her loser of the week. But we couldn't do that because, wait, there's more.
You're Billy Mays.
Yeah, pretty much I am. But wait, there's more. So on Thursday, we find out that Clay Tippins has been recording secret conversations of Casey Cagle, basically admitting that he's supporting bad bills in an attempt to derail the governorship of Hunter Hill. And this is just some. There's a lot here. I am just absolutely amazed that governor candidates are recording one another and releasing it to the press. Now I'm not in the least bit amazed that Casey Cagle is using his seat as lieutenant governor to screw up the chances of another governor candidate from getting to office. That's not at all surprising, but the fact that Clay Tippins would record him and then release it to the media, that's not something we hear of a lot.
It's not, but
I'm a fan.
Well, of course,
I am too.
we're all...
Look, here's my thing: with me, it's a very simple proposition. I'm very Machiavellian when it comes to Cagle. The ends justify the means. As long as he's going down, that's my happy end result.
So the bill that they were discussing is a school choice bill and it increased the cap on the income tax credits for it. So obviously school choice is a very divisive issue and is extremely partisan, and the left generally hates charter schools, school credits, or school funds that go with the child. Like they hate all of that. I thought it was interesting that on Twitter, following all of this, that so many Democrats are coming out and saying like positive things, or Cagle's right on this one. They're getting lost in the issue. The problem here is not the bill that he was talking about. The problem is that he's willing to put politics over policy and talk about it with people he doesn't know or trust. he's willing to say that on the record, because if you're saying it to people that aren't your inside team, you're saying it on the record. You can't assume, unless you're talking to the media and you told them it's off the record, that it's off the record. And he came out front and said that. And I think that's more concerning, and I just wish that like both sides would forget, what they're actually talking about policy-wise and talk about the fact that this was political, and that's the type of person Casey Cagle is.
Right. And, that's kind of, my thing with that. I think that, I'm glad that it's getting out there in the general public. I think that anybody that follows politics in Georgia and is honest is very well aware that that is the nature of Casey Cagle and always has been. It's always been politics above all else. That entire NRA stunt was politics. That's all that was. There was no great stand to be made for those 13 people who used that NRA Delta discount. And it, could have had very legitimate downside side effects to business and commerce in Georgia, but Cagle didn't care because he saw an opportunity to win some points with the GOP base. So he, could have very easily pissed off one of the largest, I believe, the largest employer in Atlanta and one of the largest employers in the state of Georgia. I don't have the numbers in front of me. Quite possibly the largest employer in Georgia.
I believe you're right. I think they are.
With this stunt, over 13 people, and just faux outrage. So there, we have Casey Cagle now, possibly for loser of the week. Although some would say, and I would like your opinion on this, there are some on social media, on Twitter and on Facebook, that are very upset at Tippins. What do y'all think? Do either of y'all think Tippins did anything wrong here?
No. It's a one-party consent state. And especially in politics, you should always assume that your phone calls are being recorded, that your conversations are being recorded, that your emails and texts are being screenshotted. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah.
Hey, can I back up real quick just so I was fact checking it? Delta Airlines is the 13th largest employer in the state. The first is Emory University. Second is the renal division of Emory University, both with 40,000 employees each. Then Fort Benning at 32,000. Army National Guard at 19. And it pretty much bounces back and forth between various parts of Emory and some military bases, all the way till you hit Home Depot in the number 9 spot.
Can you really consider Fort Benning to be a state employer? I mean...
Well...
Yeah, because there's a lot of
so what, we're talking 32,000 contractors?
Yeah.
On top of the military personnel.
All right, so like when I was in basic at Fort Benning, right, we went to the DFAC, which was where you go to eat. All those people in there cooking and serving food and all of that, that's not military personnel. Those are contractors.
So you're telling me that the memes about the Army cook are non-existent. There are no Army cooks.
Well, there are probably like out in the field, right? Not stateside, but like, on a base in Iraq, yes. And that would probably only be on a base in Iraq that does not have an airstrip. My guess is if it was relatively safe in a green zone or something like that, they probably got contractors there as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, if it's in a green zone and you got an airstrip, bring in the Chick-fil-A.
Right.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Bring in the Chick-fil-A, bring in the Budweiser, we'll be good to go. Matt can have his beers that nobody's heard of before.
Not in the Middle East. They don't allow alcohol.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, so I've heard. I've heard lots of things from friends of mine that have served in the Middle East about alcohol in the Middle East.
Right.
it's forbidden the same way that pot is forbidden in this state.
Wow, there's a big employer down your way, Jessica,
Who?
in Waynesboro, the Southern Nuclear Operating Company.
Oh, for Plant Vogel and everything.
They have nuclear power down there.
Yeah,
We have several.
we
all
have
over.
Plant Vogel's all.
Yeah, I knew about Vogel, but I was thinking that was down in Savannah.
Yeah, there's another one near Macon. You can see it from that little town where they did fried green tomatoes. But yeah, there's nuclear plants all over South Georgia.
Yeah, there's Plant Hatch, which is down near Baxley too, which is like equidistance from all of them.
Yeah, I actually I have a guy that I used to work with many years ago that he left the company that we were with to go work at a nuclear power plant somewhere. Although his was Port St. Lucie down in Florida. So
Oh yeah, I vacationed there.
you vacationed on the site of a nuclear power plant.
No, I vacationed in Port St. Lucie.
Did it look like Springfield? Did they have the three-eyed fish and whatnot?
No, it didn't.
I ask you because I assume you did some fishing. So
You know what? Actually, I didn't. I get rained every day we were there.
oh man. Well, I mean that's Florida. You know it rains every day at 4 o'clock.
Oh no! Like it rained all day every day. Because for whatever reason, like I want to say, I've been in the last 7 years. I've been to the beach in Florida 6 times, and 3 of those there were bona fide tropical storms that hit where I was. So that was fun. My wife, I let the kids out into the ocean to boogie board during a tropical storm because the waves were pretty good. She was not happy with me that day.
I'll bet. I'll bet she was not. That's not how you. It's not how you do it. It's just not. So, and what we're gonna do for a while here is we're gonna go ahead and just do a deep dive into the city of Brooklet. And at this point, I'm not really sure who the loser of the week is. I don't know whether it should be former Chief of Police Myers or whether it should be the entire city council of the city of Brooklet. There's a lot here, but what I'm going to do is we're going to start out with part 1, which is about Chief Doug Meyer. He decided that he was going to go ahead and cite a business owner for speaking out against the local PD, against his department, the Brooklet Police Department. And there's video of all of this. There's video. There's reports, and there's a letter where he says that if you persist in this matter and do not take the opportunity to so generously afforded you for a learning experience, then you will be cited into court for the violations of obedience to authorized persons directing traffic, disorderly conduct, obstructing or hindering law enforcement, and refusal to obey official request at fire or other emergency. So those charges, Meyer was going to, I want to use the term posthumously. I don't think we'll call it that, but after the
retroactively.
fact, yeah, there we go. Thank you, Matt. Yeah, Chief Doug Meyer was going to retroactively apply these charges. So, there's a lot here, just a whole lot. A lot of complaints, a lot of video. So, it's just really been. It's really been an amazing story. I think that that Jessica is probably at the end of this going to be up for a Pulitzer or a Peabody or something. I don't know what, but this truly is outstanding journalistic work. So, we'll go ahead and we'll skip ahead to another issue where the Brooklet police chief decided to retroactively issue a citation, and this actually occurred at a school on video. So, Jessica, what was you tell this better than I can read it. So
in this instance, which is actually, we skipped ahead to part 5 of the story, this lady was speeding, and she was given a verbal warning. But something happened on the roadside. We don't know exactly what, because a lot of the dash cam and body cam footage has been taken with Doug Meyer when he left, and a lot of the reports. So we can only go on the video that we do have. But basically, she was given a warning. Something happened. Even though she was given a warning, she contacted Post and other law enforcement entities about her interaction with Doug Meyer, who was the chief, because it was abrasive or whatever it was. So she contacts Post. And so the next day, he shows up at her work, which is a school, and he writes her a ticket for the speeding that he gave her a verbal warning for. And he tells her on the body cam footage that he's writing her a ticket because she filed a complaint, and that his words were she drug his name in the poo, and she was trying to ruin his reputation and all this nonsense, but it's all on video. And so the speeding ticket went to court. It was null-prossed by the judge, and so when that happened, Meyer was ticked, and he went ahead and wrote the same ticket for the same date on the same time, same identical tickets, but one had citation 123 and one had citation number 129, and he wrote her the ticket again and sent her back to court, even though the judge had null-prossed it. I mean, the guy is just a tyrant who should never, ever, ever be in law enforcement again.
I am very, very surprised that the judge did not, find him in contempt or something for that. I am not a lawyer. These are just my opinions, but, I mean, if it's already been thrown out once, then,
Well, the problem with South Georgia lawyers and judges anyway is that even the ethical ones, even the ones who go by the book and know right from wrong, there are so few of them down here, and they all have to work together, and they are all appointed to something, whether they're the court judge or the solicitor or something at the county level. They're all so intertwined that they don't want to rock the boat, so they don't really operate outside of their scope. And while that wouldn't be outside of their scope, it would be outside of the norm for South Georgia. And so you just don't see that. And it's frustrating because the judicial system is supposed to be the remedy, and a lot of times it's not. And I don't really know what happened with the second ticket because the documents are gone. So it's been a really frustrating investigation in terms of trying to deal with all these stories and connect all the dots, because people are scared to come forward even still, and understandably. But
yeah, you look at this guy's resume, and I mean, he's been everywhere. It's right. I've looked at the resume. I mean, the guy's been in Texas. Was it Louisiana or Mississippi?
I believe it was Mississippi.
Yeah, and then he was actually up near me for a good while. I found out that he did a year or so for the Villa Rica Police Department, and almost 15 years with the Carroll County Sheriff.
Right.
And then after he left the Carroll County Sheriff, he came down and blessed Brooklet with his presence.
And Brooklet is a very small town. I mean, on the last episode we talked about it. It's fewer than 1,500 people. I lived there for a little while when I first moved to South Georgia. And the community is truly Mayberry. I mean, people yes, they speed sometimes, and there's a major highway that runs through to Savannah, so you do get some drug traffic. But for the most part, the actual downtown in the community is like where we all aspire to live in terms of like good neighbors and friendly, just safe, everything you could hope for. And it's damaged tremendously, and you know, I'm lucky right now because a lot of the people who are reading these stories don't find it vindictive because the facts are so clear and like irrefutable. But there's no joy in writing about this. Like, it's very sad that this has happened because of 2 or 3 officers who made the lives of these people a living hell. It is unacceptable. Like, that's not the only person that a ticket or something was like retroactively occurred. I mean, there's a guy who filed a complaint and he was arrested, and you know, he lost a job because of it, and like he was concerned about his custody with his child because of an obstruction charge, all because he filed a complaint. I mean, they terrorize these people. It's infuriating.
Yeah, I mean, it is, and it's just so out in the open. You know, I mean, yeah, I know this guy took so much stuff with him, but still, I mean, there's still so much that's there. And, you know, I mean, I come from a background, I've worked in law enforcement before. You know, I mean, I've certainly never done this kind of thing, but, you know, I can't imagine that if I was going to, that I would leave my body cam on. You know,
right?
And I mean, they're like recording phone calls and all kinds of insanity with the body cams on. It's just ridiculous. You know, the man's peeing with his body cam on.
Right.
So he loves that body cam.
Maybe he just forgot it was there.
He must have, which I think is certainly a good thing for All on Georgia.
That's not the case though, because you can see him turn it off and on. So he didn't forget it was there because if these interactions, he turns it on. He chooses when to turn it on. They're supposed to turn it on when they begin an interaction as they're walking up to a car. Whenever he gave a warning, the entire footage is there. When he gave a traffic citation, you never see the video start until he's sitting in his vehicle writing the ticket. You don't see that first confrontation. Lord only knows what he said to some of these people to escalate the situation, you know? I mean, no, is it right to, like, step out of your car and, you know, like, not follow orders? No, but you don't really know what happened the first go-around when he walked up to them, especially seeing the way he speaks to these people and the accusations he makes. So the worst part about all of this is that the council has not said anything. They've not acknowledged that it's happening. They refuse to comment, and it's just like a total betrayal. The citizens are just like beside themselves that council won't say anything, not even so much as like, we're sorry this has happened to our community, or we're going to look into it. Nothing. Not a thing.
Yeah, and I learned something that I didn't know. Trying to help out a bit with this story because, you know, Jessica was bogged down, so I was going to call and just try to get a statement, and found out that, you know, sometimes City Hall is closed, like in the middle of the day.
Well, and we have this conversation privately. Like, in South Georgia, things are very different, especially in a small town. People will just stop by and chat, or they go to pay their water bill and they'll stay for 30 minutes just, you know, blabbing. And it is distracting, and it limits efficiency. So I understand why, you know, on these hours, or I think it's like 10 to 15 hours a week, they'll close for they'll be there, but they'll just lock the doors to the public and work uninterrupted. They don't answer the phone and all this stuff. But, you know, in the middle of a crisis when these things are happening, like, you would think they would be out front a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, somebody needs to be working some PR on that. You know, we're looking into it. We're sorry. We're doing this, and this. Things are happening. Things are moving behind the scenes. Something. So, Jessica, I suppose my final question for you on this before we move on is, Who is the bigger loser here right now? Is Meyer still the bigger loser, or is Brooklet City Council being the bigger loser right now?
Well, Eric Cumby, who is our video guy down here in South Georgia, has helped me edit hours and hours and hours of body cam footage. And I promised him that under no circumstances would I avoid nominating Doug Meyer as a loser. So I think there'll be more opportunities for me to nominate the council, but for this week it's got to be Dougie.
Well, and we actually, this week, we are so chock full that we have 4 loser of the week candidates.
Who's the fourth?
Matt, tell us about Representative Paulette Rakestraw and her post taking a stand against human trafficking in Georgia.
I forgot Matt was here. He's been so quiet.
Right? Now I'm on the spot. It wasn't much of a post. Oh, wait. Hold on. And it's from May 22nd. Sorry, May 15th.
Right. But still, this is something that it appears to have kind of, resurfaced, because look, I mean, none of us go check Representative Rakestraw's page on the daily to see
right
post.
Yeah, someone posted on it, and then my wife, in a very, very rare display of I don't even know. Like, I was shocked because she sends me the screen cap where she just laid into her, for a few sentences, which is a lot. If you knew my wife, she just checks out of politics altogether because I keep up with it enough for all of us. And was just, shame on you, you're conning people. Yeah, it was something else. But here's the funny thing about all this is, again, it's this human trafficking nonsense and all that $20 tax, so that the state of Georgia can sell you some porn. From a very sketchy source, I've gotten word that bill is going to be back next session, sponsored by Sharon Cooper.
Oh God.
I can believe that.
The sketchy source says that.
Sketchy source.
Yeah, it is. Well, we all have sources where we're like, oh yeah, they're legitimate, and then there's some where it's a little sketchy from time to time. But this sketchy source says that Cooper tossed it because she thought it was good bill and did not want Paulette to get the credit for it. And so it'll be back next year with Cooper as the primary sponsor.
Well, and that's something that I've been on the record for a while saying that. I don't think that this is going to go anywhere. I think my thoughts on it are, I think that they're going to get rid of Chris Sevier.
They have to.
They're going to get somebody that has more sway than Representative Rakestraw, because just, kind of inside politics stuff, Rakestraw, she's not a big power player in the legislature.
Well, and she's on her way
not,
out because Joseph Gullett had better win.
Yeah, I mean, but it's it's just one of those things where she was just always a follower and never a leader anyway. But so it was one of those things that between that and Chris Sevier and all of the outrage of Chris Sevier that came, which, I mean, look, believe me, if you participated in that, then let me commend you, because we accomplished what needed to be accomplished, which is the entire legislature was aware of all of that going on. So, it basically led to that dying. I'm not at all surprised that Cooper would pick it up. But, it's just one of those situations where she like you said, Rakestraw's on the way out. And speaking of which, her opponent, Joseph Gullett, released a mailer last week.
No. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Please leave that in there. You have to leave that. He's so excited.
I am excited, man. When I saw that in my mail, like, my neighbors had to be thinking, "What is wrong with this guy?" Because, like, he absolutely tied her and that psychopath together, and I loved it.
Well, and look, here's the thing. The thing about it is that it's not, number one, it's not dirty politics, because as we
Hell no, it's not.
Yeah, as we learned
Look,
from Jessica,
when you just highlight the truth, you don't know.
Yeah, it's not dirty when you're telling the truth. That's number one. And number two, she fired the first shot, because on top of this Facebook post, Representative Rakestraw sent out a mailer that had a screenshot of Joseph Gullett opposing this bill in it, which just leads me to wonder who is running that campaign. Who decided, you know what, Paulette, this is what we really need to do. We need to find the most controversial thing that you've ever done. Something that you are pretty much universally mocked for. And what we want to do in this primary election is we want to bring that back to the forefront.
Right.
So, she's the one that brought this up. So then Gullett fires back with his own mailer, like, that's not what happened, and lays the whole deal out. And it is absolutely a beautiful, beautiful mailer. I mean, it has the entire rundown on it. Her expert witness was a man who was arrested in Tennessee for stalking a 17-year-old girl, sued the state of Texas for the right to marry his laptop, and committed criminal contempt for his failure to pay child support. And all three of those stories are cited.
Oh, God.
So, I mean, this is... It's truly been an incredible week. We have a whole bunch of losers and one winner. We don't typically do the winner of the week, but for this week, I've got to nominate Joseph Gullett for this week's winner of the week.
Hear, hear. I actually spoke to Joseph about this, and he said that the day that he approved that mailer was, he just said, man, it felt good to approve that one.
Well, I like Joseph and I really want him to win, but I cannot offer my public support until he stops speaking in third person or saying we on his page. Like, he's running, not a team. Talk like you're the candidate. I can't. It's a pet peeve of mine. I can't stand it. Bob Barr does it all the time, like even now, and he's got to get it together.
No, I disagree. I like that.
I like the team aspect.
Yeah, you always, when you're a leader, you always want to make people feel like they're on the team.
I don't vote for leaders. I don't need to be led.
Well, I mean, I don't really like the concept of government, but here we are. I mean, if you're going to be a leader, then you gotta throw it out there. We the people. Maybe not we the people, because that sounds kind of Tea Party-ish. And Lord knows the Tea Parties went downhill in the last 10 years.
Yeah, they're all gone now, aren't they?
They are. There's actually a very interesting All on Georgia article about that. It was an Associated Press piece, and yeah, they're all gone. It's,
Yeah, like 87% of them or something.
yeah, they died. Well, they didn't die, but their seats went somewhere else. So,
Man, we didn't even do any warm-up stuff. We just right into losers.
yeah, well, I mean, we had a lot of losers to cover this week. I mean, it was a crazy amount of losers. But I mean, look, we do have some lighter news. I mean, we definitely do. There's definitely been some crazy things going on all over the country. So let's see. Here, we can start in Dallas, Texas, where we had a pig on the loose in Dallas. There was.
Renee went to. Oh, sorry.
Wait a minute. Continue.
I was just gonna ask if Renee was in Dallas at the same time the story happened.
Well,
Did you just call Unterman a pig?
So, really quick sidetrack story. Renee Facebook message. She tried to get me fired in 2015 when I was working for Peasold, Stephen Allison, Heath Clark, and David Stover. She tried to get me fired from working for them because I wrote about her bill. And then somebody on the outside tried to, like, mend the fence and be like, look, Jessica's not all that bad. Like, she just has her beliefs. Try to be nice to her. So, like, a little bit of time passed, and Renee agreed with me on something, and so she sent me a Facebook message and was like, something like, a little birdie told me that we might agree on some things, and just wanted to let you know this is one of those things. So I didn't even respond except with a picture of a pig with wings in the air. I never heard from her again.
So speaking of pigs, in Dallas there was now Dallas, Texas, not Dallas, Georgia. There was a pig on the loose, and in the middle of the highway. And to make things better, there was a traffic reporter. There was a journalist there named Madison Sawyer, who she broke out the Twitter machine out of her pocketbook and went to work. And it's absolutely amazing. Starting from the Twitter machine, we went right on down to where we had a helicopter in the air, watching the pig running back and forth. Which
was it a wild pig or was it an escaped? Well, I mean, they're all the same pigs. It's all Sioux Scroffa, but was it a domestic pig? An obviously domestic pig.
Well, I think it was a domestic pig, because there's a man that showed up to comfort the pig until someone else got there. So I am familiar. I don't know whether how much our listeners are, but I am pretty familiar with how hogs behave, and you don't comfort a wild pig. So this would certainly most likely be.
I swear, this sounds like a conversation someone would have about Renee Unterman.
You know what's interesting about wild pigs, though, is you can catch one and put it in a pen and domesticate it in just a matter of days.
So there's hope for Renee.
Yeah, I guess so.
She can be domesticated. Pretty scary news. Government researchers say it's only a matter of time until a commercial airline is hacked.
Yeah, you know what? I saw that.
Yeah, that's some scary stuff, isn't it?
Well, and part of me, I look at that and I'm like, how internet dependent is a plane at this point? Because my internet's fine, but Jessica's is terrible.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, I mean, because I'm not a pilot, but I would imagine and certainly hope that worst case scenarios. I'm assuming that what we're referring to here is that is hackable is going to be the plane's navigation system, because I mean, of course, DHS didn't release a whole lot of what could. It just said the there was a Pacific Northwest National Laboratory Study Group that they were going to see what they could do, and they were going to attempt to hack an aircraft via its Wi-Fi internet service, and they were able to establish actionable and unauthorized presence on one or more onboard systems. Which it just says onboard systems, so I mean, what that could mean anything from they managed to gain control of the throttle control and the navigation to they managed to turn the heat off and flick the seatbelt lights on and off. So I mean, but still, it's we're talking some pretty scary stuff here. An airplane is a death tube, and I don't like flying. You guys fly a lot?
I less than I used to, but I fly with regularity. I used to fly for work quite a bit, every couple of weeks, and now it's a time or two a year.
Yeah, I stay out of the death tubes. I am a driver. I am a driver through and through. So,
You know what? I'm a fan of flying. You know what? It's funny, man. The last time I flew was when I went down to Port St. Lucie, and my grandmother had just passed away, and my wife and kids.
what's going on back there?
The dog did something, and one of the kids is yelling "bad dog," and kicked her outside. I'll start this story over.
Thank you. Please do.
All right, so the last time I flew was actually when we vacationed in Port St. Lucie, and my grandmother had just passed away, and I had to be here to be a pallbearer in her funeral. But a majority of my kids were not old enough that I wanted to engage in the conversations about death with them yet. So my wife and the kids went ahead and went on down, and I picked up a Southwest flight for like $70 down to West Palm Beach, which was about a 45-minute drive from Port St. Lucie. And if you've ever flown Southwest, you know that there's typically not assigned seats. But when you're flying alone, you get a much better pick of the seats. Even though I was in the C group, which was the third group of people to board the plane, I come in and seat 1A was available. And I love window seats. So I'm sitting there, and it's this nice couple who lives down there, and they've been at their vacation home in Highlands, North Carolina. And we go to take off, and we're going down the runway, and there's this god-awful sound, just boom, 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 boom. And I thought that it was just, like the lines, in the concrete on the runway.
Yeah, the little strips.
Right. Until the nose of the plane lifted up. And then that noise went from boop, 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 boop to and I was like, holy crap. Well, we got off the ground, get up in the air, and when you hear all the landing gear fold up, it stops. And I turned and looked at the lady next to me. I was like, the good news is that it was the landing gear that was making that noise. The bad news is we'll probably cartwheel down the runway in West Palm. and like the color drains out of her face. And and then to make matters worse, this was hands down the most turbulent flight I've ever been on in my life. Like, I judge how bad a flight is by looking around at the crew, right? And when I see the crew racing for their seats and buckling up, I'm, praying. So it was fun. I get one of the best pictures I've ever taken came off that flight. I snapped a really good picture of lightning going up and down from the clouds below us coming up and the clouds above us coming down all at the same time. It's a super cool picture.
Wow. Yeah, see, my thing with flying is that, it's basically, people have a lot of misconceptions about flying. A lot of people kind of think of it like it's a really classy thing. You're basically on a bus. It's a bus in the air. So,
some of them are actually called Airbus.
Yeah, so when I'm flying, on the rare occasions that I have to, I basically think of it the same way as if I were to go to Atlanta down to down to West End Station and jump on a MARTA bus. That's what I set my expectations at. Some people, they get on an airplane and they expect this, 5-star world class treatment, and I don't understand it. So, but it's we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna close this out this week with a reminder to everyone that that July the 1st is the drop dead date when Georgia's distracted driving law goes into effect.
Oh, what a piece of crap legislation that was.
Anybody have any closing thoughts? Ending remarks?
Well, are you going to tell us who the loser of the week was this week?
I will. I had completely forgotten that.
Well, we were so loser heavy in the beginning of the show. I can understand why that would happen.
We were, because it just feels like because it feels like I had covered that. So let's see. Oh, and our friend, he has won with not even a runoff. Casey Cagle with 66.7% of the vote.
And why were we upset with him again?
For his lying incompetence ad. Ted Cruz pulled down 16.7% for that ridiculous tweet about the Zodiac killer. I'm still not sure what all that's about. I think a lot of these politicians are on, psychotropic drugs, and they're not always taking their psychotropic drugs before they get on Twitter. And then Representative Diane Black coming in dead last for saying porn is the root cause of school shootings. Let me tell you why you're wrong, listeners. I'm disappointed in you because that should have gotten more love.
So tell us again the 4 losers for this week, just so people know who to go vote for.
Okay, your 4 Loser of the Week candidates for this week are going to be Senator Renee Unterman for all that Twitter nonsense with House Representative David Clark and others. Chief Meyer from the Brooklyn PD for creating one of the longest series in the history of All on Georgia based on his actions. Casey Cagle for the quotable quote, "It ain't about public policy, it's about f***ing politics." And Paulette Rakestraw for all of that nonsense with Chris Sevier for sending out lying mailers and other offenses. So those 4 are going to be our Loser of the Week candidates. All right, do we have any closing thoughts this week? As summer is rolling in and the temperatures are in the high 90s and it's hot.
I got a shout out to the Trump administration.
Oh, boy.
Oh, God, it's about public land.
Yeah, it is. Yesterday, they announced $256 million in approved construction projects for the national parks.
Taxation is theft.
That's not that money doesn't come from taxation. Thank you.
Wait a minute.
They just printed
We're
it.
not. Yeah. Wait a minute. Let's skip over that and go to something else for a second. Why are they constructing things in national parks? I thought you liked public lands to be, pristine and untouched by man.
Rebuilding.
Oh.
Right,
so you like your public lands, but you also like your public restrooms.
Well, when you've got a national park and you've got something like, I don't know, Mount Rushmore, right? There's a little visitor center that's there, and it ages and whatnot. Part of and actually I think that the visitor center at Mount Rushmore was one of the things. There's a rehab and a seismic retrofit of the Mammoth Hotel guest room wings at Yellowstone. So I do like, but see, public land, it falls in, like, there's a big, that's a large and massive encompassing statement there. Yeah, we got national parks, but there's, like every national park, state parks, those are all public lands. National forest, that's public lands. Wilderness areas are the ones that are going to be untouched. There's not even roads. In fact, I want to say that when volunteers go in and clear trails and like footpaths inside wilderness areas, they can't even use chainsaws.
Yeah,
and then of
also
course you
public
got
land that Cliven Bundy was feeding his cattle on,
and not paying his fees.
Yeah.
Yep, that's true. I mean, when I went elk hunting last year in Colorado, man, we hiked like 5 miles off the road, and I was sitting in this meadow that was just surrounded on all sides by aspens, and it was gorgeous. And I sat down, leaned up against this little cedar tree, and made my lunch, and leaned back to take a nap in the middle of the day. And at some point during my nap, a black Angus cow comes strolling through and mooed like 20 feet away and scared the bejesus out of me. It's funny, I've got a good picture of it. Made some commentary at the time that it was funny to me that I'd hiked so far in and there was a cow.
All right.
I don't really know if we can follow that for closing thoughts. I feel like you should just end there.
Why can't you follow that? I mean, you were all, oh Jesus, about my public land stuff.
I branded a bull once.
You branded a bull?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
At the ranch.
What ranch?
Our family's ranch.
What happened? Like, I'm curious about this. What's the brand look like? I mean, is it neat or is it just like, some numbers and letters?
I don't remember. It was a long time ago, but it's like a logo type thing. Like not a logo, but like the ranch name.
Right.
With the initials or whatever. Yep. It was kind of sad.
Why was it sad?
Because it hurt them.
How do you know?
Because they made a lot of noise.
I mean, do you think that animals feel pain in the same way that we do?
I do. When I step on my dog's toe, she yelps.
I'm just curious. I happen to think that they do to some extent.
I think they feel pain when we leave, too.
Oh, I hear Sadie or Stella right now.
She is. She knows we're talking about animals and thought it was her turn to be on the show. Please sit. No.
Please sit. Mom needs privacy. Go away.
Now they're all riled up. Okay, enough. Maybe another time. Shh. Close your mouth. Is Jonathan still here?
I am still here, and unfortunately, my closing remark has nothing to do with wildlife or branding animals. But just to let everybody know, we are very excited to make a major announcement coming up on next week's show regarding our first ever live event for Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong. So do be sure to tune in next week for the show, because you don't want to miss it, and you don't want to miss the opportunity to be a part of the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast in a way that you've never been able to before. So just thanks everybody for listening, and we truly do appreciate you.